Alright, so I played a game recently called Subnautica. This was a game I've seen a while ago and dismissed mainly because of lack in hardware. After which I pretty much forgot about it, sadly, because I do believe I have missed out. The games, plural, are not perfect by any means, but the experience offered is fairly unique. How many other games offer undersea exploration? I truly can't think of any other than those couple of zones in WoW. And let's be honest, nobody likes those. Subnautica is different, and it's memorable, and for that, it's a recommendation enough. What is it about? Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. Among things to mention is that the player is a survivor of a crash of a spaceship. There was another before, and hence there are a couple of bases scattered around the planet. So most of the game involves going around underwater caverns and scavenging for resources while random beasties are awfully peckish. What did I enjoy? The world, that's for sure. I like to think about how little of the ocean we truly do know now. Granted, it's probably a vast amount of nothing, but there's clearly more. And just this act of discovering more and more, seeing a little gap in the seafloor only to discover yet more. That feeling just reminds me of being a kid again, when every game uncovered a new world. So, if there is something this game does right, it's the exploration. It was too fun and interesting to explore. Oh, and I also enjoyed building up little bases. Granted, I believe the building interface and options are lacking, but it's still there. Well, it definitely could have been a lot more rudimentary. But what really gets me is the simple ability to just spring out outposts everywhere. It reminds me of Terraria, how you can make houses in hell, in mushroom biome or the actual ocean, and just have a readily available stop anytime you drop by. Makes the world feel more homey. And while these 2 points together are a very strong reason to praise the game, I sadly have little else to mention in that regard. What did I dislike? So the thing about this game is what it involves exploration, but it's not purely that. A lot of it is about avoiding the enemies, be it sharks which randomly spaz around, little fish which nibble on you, or even literal lava which randomly bursts forth in places. And I have to say that I didn't enjoy it one little bit. I've heard people say that to them, Subnautica was scary, a horror game. None of these creatures were scary. I mean, it's jump scares at best, and that's not scary, it's just surprising. And it boils down to the fact that the game isn't well designed as a game. It's designed more as an experience, with enemies as some sort of stopgap. And speaking of, same thing with depth, actually. The player doesn't have infinite oxygen and has to use vehicles or bases which generate oxygen as long as they have power. There are also some roundabout ways to go about it with pipes, but popping up tiny bases just for that is insanely wasteful, and vehicles need upgrades to go deeper, yada yada yada, more stopgaps. While the player somehow doesn't need anything to go deeper, because surely humans can go kilometers underwater with no problems whatsoever. Yeah, video games have to accept some weird logic. Anyway, those depth upgrades need resources, which frequently spawn in tiny amounts at the deepest available biomes at the current time. So you have to scrounge around for a while, running out of supplies, going back home, shouting obscenities as there is not enough resources, rinse and repeat. All that combined with a combat system which involves pressing right over and over with no aiming variety or any skill whatsoever is disappointing to say the least. Also, enemies don't act like predators would. They nibble on the player and go away for a bit, then attack again, then go away. It's specifically done in such a way that the player is supposed to avoid it. It's not subtle at all, especially with leviathans, and while they seem menacing at first, the moment you realize this behavior, they become an absolute joke. Or at worst, an annoying nuisance. There were only 2 reasons I was ever tense in this game. First is the fear of losing my vehicle because some tiny asshole shark bites it and I couldn't be asked to go out and repair it every 5 seconds. Farming all those resources again and cursing life because there's no bloody silver anywhere. I have like 15 gold and no silver, what the hell is this? Okay. And the second reason is, well, apparently I have a phobia, and it involves specifically what the game has in spades: empty space. Every time, and this happened often, every time I bumped into an area where I couldn't see walls, ceiling or the bottom all at once, If I saw even tiny bit of something, the phobia doesn't trigger. When there's nothing around for hundreds of meters, a kilometer even, that's when I would get this tense feeling. My arms would get cold, palms numb and sweaty. This actually make me understand better how people feel playing some other games, like, well, anything involving spiders, for example, or whatever swarm hosts are. Trypophobia? The one with holes. I don't have either. But this endless pitfalls at the edge of a map, this really did it for me. And I don't believe it's a good reason to say the game is actually scary, because you're not even supposed to go there in the first place. The only thing which actually did scare me is the edge of a map. Anyway, I don't believe it's Subnautica is sold as a horror game, but I do think being afraid is a major part of what was supposed to happen during the exploration and the entire experience. And if the intent is not working at all, I believe it's a bit of a failure. Aside from that, I definitely had far too many times I couldn't find anything useful to loot, or where am I supposed to go, or where did I even go already. I believe I actually finished the game without finding a couple of the zones at all. And I only accidentally found another early biome, or after already seeing the endgame zone. I remember reading the wiki and hearing of these Silt Strider Leviathans, and I still didn't see them. I just don't know where to go. This is a personal problem, I just suck at finding my way, but I think devs could have done a better job of spreading the biomes around instead of having one giant pitfall near Aurora. And they also could have done a better job of spreading the resources, because, again, I found too much gold, diamonds, lithium, lead, and I found like 3 silver in the meanwhile. I don't know what's going on with that. Anyway, I would also like to mention Below Zero, which fixes a lot of these issues, but introduces much more frustrating ones. So the start is flooded with resources. You also find rare ones much earlier. In the first half hour I already had both lithium and lead. And probably in an hour I had more silver than in my entire playthrough of the original Subnautica. The map is also a lot smaller and densely packed. It makes for a much easier times exploring, as the player doesn't need to spend 10 minutes at a time moving from one base to another, then ferrying the cargo back, yada yada yada. You even have a few objects on the map which provide oxygen, so you can sometimes delve way deeper than you should, just because you found some plants which give you oxygen, so you don't need a vehicle as much. It's pretty nice. I definitely believe that Below Zero did some very good changes. It's also easier to find food with decent water content in it, so you don't have to carry as much as well. It's just less tedious surviving and exploring. It's more fun in the beginning. However, the second I tried to build anything in Below Zero, I ran into gigantic problems. First of all, the player doesn't get the building tool until getting through a hefty amount of story. Then, the moment I tried to build anything, I couldn't. Maybe one room at a time and an exit which goes inside a wall. Nothing could connect, so I tried to a more open space. 2 small rooms connected. Nothing else connected to it. I couldn't even do it vertically somehow. So I said screw it and just made a tiny base. But then I tried to get the vehicle port. It didn't fit anywhere and had to be separate. So I said screw it. I even played for a little longer and got lost again. So I tried to establish a base deeper in. This is when I truly gave up. The base took me over 2 hours to build. 2 hours. And I was so fed up I had cheats enabled the entire time. I didn't need to bother with oxygen, or building materials, or anything else. And it still took me 2 hours. Because nothing fit anywhere. I was just cursing everything by the end. I got so fed up I just gave myself everything. Every recipe, everything I could possibly give. So I could build a nuclear reactor, bunch of lamps outside for better view, etc, etc. It still didn't look right, and I still couldn't fit the sea truck landing port anywhere. It had to be separate again. Then I got through more of the story, and it boiled down to I sense an important cave. There's an important thing of importance here. Go there. So I go to that area. This is an important discovery of great importance. We need to find more important things. And this repeated multiple times. I did like the story at first because the protagonist actually has some character, unlike the last one. The first one definitely didn't, by design, was completely silent and personality-less. But I did like the second one more, but after like the first hour, the game was just running on fumes. The developers simply didn't finish anything. It's probably the most apparent when anything alien is shown. Devs clearly put effort into the sister storyline, which is short, and kinda rough, but that second storyline in comparison is just a mess, like I have said. Nonsensical MacGuffin dialogue which uses a lot of words which mean absolutely nothing. And at one point I get him, Alan, out of me, and he still talks. It's like they didn't even test this crap. Hell, they even have a lot more invisible walls everywhere. It's not like the invisible walls are an instant black mark against the game, but it's a great sign of a lazy design. The moment you find any, a little less magical the world seems. And the moment you bump into another invisible wall, it compounds. Couple that together with what I have already mentioned, much worse spacing overall after the start, and more annoying enemies, yeah, Below Zero is a mess. Oh, and I almost forgot, the above ground areas, something I believe was definitely not explored enough in the original game. In Below Zero, these zones are truly horrible. See, I love snow, I love cold areas, and I do believe visually Below Zero is more interesting than the original, in both below ground and above ground areas. But holy crap, just having white and more white with every single cave and clearing looking exactly the same as the last zone, you could do so damn much. Look at, hell, anything. Again, I think of WoW. Northrend is so distinct, and there are a few other winter zones out there. Look at Skyrim, the entire world is a winter zone. And there are still so many memorable, unique places which aren't just white. Yet, in Below Zero there was total sensory deprivation. I could not find anything. Somehow I walked through the entire zone and I didn't find a dig site until I checked the wiki. And it was down to the fact that the entrance is small and looks like a texture just didn't load in. So I simply ignored it when I saw it. Actually, yeah, that's another thing. Both Subnautica games have a surprisingly low view distance which can't be adjusted, and the idea is that when underwater it makes sense. It can be difficult to see far ahead, especially if there's plankton swimming around, the lights are scarce, and it's just overall hard to see through murky waters. It works, it's fine, it makes sense. But above ground it's a different story entirely, and I frequently walked closer to what seems interesting only to see textures pop in and show me a wall. It's actually... I'll spoil something. The first game has islands. 2 of them, at least what I know of. And both of them are concealed. To reveal them, I actually found a way to open up the inventory above water. And the clouds covering the islands disappear. This seemed like a bug turned into a clever trick by the developers, what was kept in as a feature. And I assumed something similar must be happening in Below Zero's snowy areas with this weird texture popping. Not the case at all. It's all just an unfinished mess. So yeah, I believe Subnautica can really benefit from some serious modding or a proper sequel. Adding a proper combat system, revamping AI, expanding the equipment, and fleshing out the empty parts. Also, completely retconning Below Zero aliens and going back to less is more approach to the story. Although maybe with a more interesting protagonist. Could be something truly beautiful here. Instead, it's just a neat little titles I've loved for a short while, soon got annoyed by, and will probably mention in passing here and there. But it's very little more than that. Oh well.